Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Hi, this is Zak Mirhighlights with the Bulletin Board Heroes here on Share Talk for Thursday, the 22nd of April. Starting off with Byotrol, where you can see that we had a narrow bear trap last month below the old November support at 5.7, so it's 5.5 this time. And they tend to be decent signals if you're there to spot them, obviously. Current situation is that we've gapped higher through the 50-day moving average, one of our favourite signals, and also through the initial April resistance at 6.5 pence, while we're above 6.5 pence, looking towards 9 pence at that November resistance line projection. And obviously there's the old August peak from last year, around 10 pence after that. But looks as though with a gap higher after the bear trap, we've got a decent reversal combo in terms of the signals there on the Byotrol daily chart. Next up is Catenae. I see that we're pushing ahead with COVID passports, obviously against all the odds. Here we've got a situation, we've got the higher low for the second half of April. Always a spiky, difficult one to call, so maybe wait for an end-of-day close through the 200-day moving average. That's around 3.02 pence as perhaps a confirmation that the shares will have a little spike, possibly up towards the 5 pence area, which is that February resistance line projection. But admittedly, it's a very fiddly chart, so we'll just see how that pans out. On to Cora Gold, which has not appeared here for quite a while, but here we are now. It looks as though we've got a slow break through this falling wedge that's been in place since December, breaking the line there around 7.5 pence and above 7.5 and above the 50-day line just below 8 pence, looking towards 11 pence over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks. And the background to that is that there was that narrow bear trap again below 7 pence at the beginning of the month, and we've had sort of bullish divergence there in the RSI window as well, so it does suggest that there's some momentum, possible momentum behind the Cora Gold recovery. On to a stock which has been a bit slow moving of late, but looks like it's starting to get going at the moment. Deepverge. Here you'll be able to see that the shares have bounced off the floor of that rising trend channel, which has been in place since October. Also a 2-3 day bear trap from below the 50-day moving average. We had a similar one in March, but end of day close through that resistance line there from March at 33 pence plus could once again take the shares on course for a move to the top of the channel and towards 50 pence as soon as the end of next month. The good thing, I suppose, is the way that the stop loss just below 30 pence or 29 pence, something like that, is relatively tight for Deepverge at the moment. RSI pushed above neutral 50 as well, so that's an added bonus on the technical front. Next up, Empyrean, which has a great looking chart. This sort of V-shaped bull flag that we've got, extended consolidation either side of the 200-day moving average. What we want to see now, or what we'd like to see, is an end-of-day close through the March peak at 5.46, which looks as though it may happen before the end of the week. If we can get that, then we're looking at a resistance line there from September at 7.5 pence as the initial target over the next couple of weeks. A big picture target for fans of the shares up towards 12 or 13 pence, and that could be seen over the next 1 to 2 months. So looking very well sort of positioned there for Empyrean Energy at the moment. So the top of that large triangle from back in May last year. Itaconix, I think I've covered this many times for some reason, but I seem to like this one. Here we've got the situation where we've had gap. Well, we had the gap there in December, so that really started the whole process. The usual rule of buying after an unfilled gap through resistance the next day would have got you into the stock around 2.9 pence, and you've been in party mode ever since. Current situation is that we had the gap through resistance again in earlier this month, probably last week in fact, and you had another continuation signal to go long versus the around the 8 to 9 pence level, so 8 pence, something like that. And heading towards the top of the rising trend channel from October as high as 15 pence, and what looks like a textbook bullish situation with that great looking arc or the sort of saucer formation, and then the gap through the right hand side, very strong indeed. Next up, a stock which I covered I think a couple of days ago, but it's back again on the basis of an upgrade to the target. I think We were looking for 7 to 8 pence before, but with Kropz now, we're looking up to 10 pence on this rather illiquid chart. Well, it was illiquid until this week, in fact, but we gapped up through the 50-day line, that gap through the resistance, so you would have had an entry point somewhere on the, I suppose actually just at the start of the week. And as I said, going for 10 pence, hopefully by the end of next month, and the way things are going, even by the end of this month on Kropz at the moment. Another stock which is rather obscure, but starting to look rather more interesting is mining minerals and metals. Here we've had a gap through the 200-day moving average at 5.85 pence. And the big target here, while we're above 4 pence, recent support is up to as high as 18 pence, which is obviously a punchy call, but the shares have done that before. They did that in December from a sort of similar 2 to 4 pence and then up to 15 pence. So looking for 18 pence on this occasion for Triple M. On to a stock which is also in vertical climbing mode at the moment, vertical ascent. Here we had the gap higher for Pelatro, so the gap through resistance. So that would have taken you long, I suppose, really, sometime yesterday around 50 pence if you were brave enough to do that. And making good progress now. The top of the channel there and the top of the range, really, up to 80 pence as soon as the end of next month. And that channel from back in November 2019, those halcyon days before the pandemic. So this stage only really back below that old resistance from October, around 48 pence, really delaying the upside scenario for Pelatro at the moment. Another stock which doesn't get much airplay here, but it's back again today, is Proton Motor Power Systems. Here we're looking at a situation where there's a falling wedge, or looks like there will be a falling wedge break. That resistance line there, the wedge around 64 pence, so an end-of-day close or a weekly close above that could and should take the shares back up towards the main post-March resistance near to the 80 pence level, and hopefully much more than that over the coming weeks. End-of-day close back below yesterday's support, sub 55 pence, should do the trick in terms of potential money management. Next up, the punter's favourite, remote monitor systems. Hasn't been quite so sparky of late, but looks like the shares are taking up the slack. The reason for saying that is that we are finding support at the 200-day moving average, so that's around 1.5 pence, and we bounced off that on several occasions in the recent past, so above 1.5. The glass is half full rather than half empty, and what we're waiting for here, really, which might finally get the shares to move or spike as they did in the good old days, is an end-of-day close back above the November resistance line and the 50-day moving average at 1.88. Is maybe something to watch out for over the next few days. Finishing off with Webis, which was a bit disappointing actually. I was hoping that it would follow through from the rally towards 7 pence, but it didn't. And now we've got a sort of more shallow rising trend channel than we were drawing before. That has its base at 4 pence, and at least while we're above the 50-day line at 3.64, looking once again to the fabled 7 to 7.5 pence area that we were looking for previously. The plus point still remains that unfilled gap to the upside that we had in February, so that was the entry point in terms of the technical argument there. And as I said, above the 50-day line at the moment, up to 7.5 pence. Hopefully as soon as the end of next month. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.